Can you describe, sort of in detail, what led up to March 1st, and maybe from the moment you woke up to the time you went to bed on that day? Maybe just describe for the audience what happened.
Um, so I'm going to start the day prior. So it was February 28th. And my wife had been, she had gone to a occupational therapist for herself because she was really interested in just body work and different things. You know, she was on this healing journey herself, and she was just exploring and kind of seeing. And I'll never forget this because she came home and she said that it was a specific therapy called MNRI, and it's basically like almost reflexology, kind of making sure that the signals that are being sent with your nervous system from your brain are actually translating within your body the right way. And it's pretty interesting work. But she went to this person and went through a session, and at the end of it, the person told her that she's like, it's almost like your body is trapped in two different states. I see your body trying to close in and kind of going into the fetal position in some ways to protect. But I also see this aspect within your neck and everything where you're fighting and you're stretching towards something more. And I was just blown away, when she told me that, because I was just like, man, that's so interesting, because I didn't know a lot about the therapy at that point. But to then know that the next day, she legitimately, her spirit was leaving her life, was leaving this body that she had, that had carried her. So anyways, so started that day. March 1st started just like any other day. I got up early. I was out the door by 5:30. That's when I work. My wife was a stay-at-home mom starting some interior design stuff, and I'm really wrestling with trying not to I'm avoiding the topic. So I was at work, and I was actually getting ready to leave work because my wife was actually taking our daughter Elsie to an MNRI appointment, because she was like, man, this was so interesting. Elsie's going too. So I was leaving work, and she called me and said, hey babe, I feel like I'm having a panic attack. I feel really pressure in my chest. I'm having a hard time catching my breath. And she was about 3 minutes away from my office, and so I said, well, just pull over and just stay there, and I'll come and, we'll drive together. And so I asked her, just stay on the phone with me. It's going to be okay. Just breathe, and she got out of the car to she was just going to get in the back seat to sit with Elsie. And that's when the phone cut out. She had passed out in the transition from the front seat to the back seat. And so I called back, and no answer. I called back again, and Elsie answered the phone and said, Daddy, Mama fell down. She's having a panic attack. And I said, okay, just stay there. I'm on my way. I'm right there. And then somebody that was across the way in the parking lot had run over and said, hey, can I talk to whoever's on the phone? And I don't remember their name. I wish I did. Because she said, okay, I saw what happened. I called 911, and I'll stay here with your daughter until you get here. And so, probably 2 to 3 minutes passed. I was there. I got there, and I saw my wife laying on the ground, and I just knew that it wasn't right. that she was not okay. And I just had this gut feeling that she wasn't going to make it. And it was, but again, going back to the hope and just be, nope, everything's going to be okay. And so I started trying to help, just feel for pulse, trying to check for vitals. At the same time, I'm trying to tell my daughter, like, hey, mama's going to be okay. Like, I know you're really upset. I know this is scary. Just, we're going to be okay. And then I don't know, probably in the next 2 to 5 minutes, the ambulance got there. They started asking me all the questions. And so I told them all the stuff, jumped in the car, and was just trying to hold and comfort Elsie. And, they loaded her up in the ambulance, went there. When we got to the hospital, I just followed the ambulance behind him. I wasn't leaving so I just put on my emergency flashers and followed him like 2 feet behind the whole way. And when we got there, I didn't know it at the time, but it was actually the chaplain met us at the door. And so they're taking me, they're talking to us about, hey, your mom gonna be okay. They didn't say that, actually. They had somebody there to be with Elsie. And then as soon as we left Elsie, that's when they told me that your wife is not doing okay. They're currently administering life-saving procedures on her. And at that point, man, I blacked out. I don't remember the next 10 minutes or so. I just, so much confusion, so much anger, so much like, what are you talking about, my wife? And then I could hear him in there working on her. And so I got on the phone, called my wife's brother and told him, and then what was going on, just to try to have somebody be aware of what's happening, because it's just shit's hitting the fan and I don't know what's going on. So after I talked with him, he started calling people and, trying to rally. And I'm sorry, man. This is really hard. I finally asked the nurse, like, can I just be in there with her? Like, I'm sitting out here in the hallway by myself. Like, what is going on? And they let me go back in with her, and the sounds of them working on her are so ingrained in me. Like, I can still hear my wife's ribs breaking from them doing chest compressions and trying to save her life. And I held her hand, and I was praying, and I was doing everything that I could think of to doing everything I could to try to save her. And I swear, man, she came back. I heard the blip on the monitor. I felt her come back, like the energy. I felt something change, and it was for like 10 seconds, and it was almost like she had come back enough to just
say goodbye.
And then that's when they called it time of death, 12:20. It was 1 hour and 10 minutes from when she had called me and told me that she was having a panic attack. 1 hour and 10 minutes, my life went from, just believing everything is going to be okay. Me and my wife are rebuilding our marriage. We're rebuilding the foundation of what we're going to build and provide for our kids. Just gone. And I mean, it still just makes me shake and just want to crawl out of my skin,
I went through an accident, right? That was not even close to the same thing, but there was a moment in time, there was several hours and even several days to precede that where it was pretty clear that my wife was going to die, right? So even though she lived through that experience, it changed everything. It changed my entire perspective on life. And one of the main things that I talk about in that shift, and I'm curious if this is the case for you, is the way that I prioritized my time and my life was very much wrong prior to. And then after I realized, like, dude, life is a gift. Like, every day is a gift. Every breath is a gift. You said something like, you don't know what you have until it's gone, right? Mm-hmm. And so just really curious, like, how did your mindset or perspective on life, like, how is it different today than it was a year and 2 months ago when things were seemingly swimming along in your life and things were good, right?
Yeah. I think that it's made me be a lot more intentional. The reality is that I went from being able to play man-on-man defense, went from a parental standpoint to a kid standpoint, to now being this playing zone, and having to navigate through literally everything. The things that my wife would take care of and just naturally was part of her expression of, helping to do all the logistics. She breathed life into everything that happened. And to now be holding and having be the one to carry everything. The cooking, the cleaning, the fathering, the trying to go back to work and figure out what do I even care? Like, it's made me wrestle on like an existential level of why do we do what we do?
Yeah.
Because when I had nothing to give, I had to be so thoughtful and with my energy and where am I going? What am I directing this towards? Because I have to figure out what's the most important.
Yeah. What's like the hardest part now that you're never going to be their mom? Okay, I understand that. Mm-hmm. But you're filling certain roles that Crystal, your wife, used to fill. Mm-hmm. What's like the hardest one or two things that you just didn't really appreciate enough until like you got put in this situation where you had to play both sides?